Hi Paradise family. So today we are here to learn how to make this adorable little bag. This is the Jazz by Kite Co Creates, and she is absolutely adorable. I just love her little connectors here, how she did the zipper overlay to where it then goes into the strap connectors. Absolutely adorable. She is a medium-sized bag and she's a handbag, or you can also she has an option to where you can add a crossbody to it. Very, very cute. So on the outside, you have a large zipper pocket as well as a large slip pocket. On the inside, it opens up real nice and big. So even though it's a smaller bag, it still opens up real big so that you can see everything on the inside. She does have two slip pockets on the inside, but you could also add a zipper pocket as well. She comes together really quick, really fast. You have the option to do rolled handles, or you can do like I did, some faux rolled handles, or you could just do your traditional handles, just, two pieces sewn together at 1 inch. There's lots of different options on how you can do that. She is a binded bag. I'll get a little bit closer here. So she is binded on the inside. But the binding is really easy. Really easy. It doesn't take too much to do it. And she has some really good tips and tricks in the pattern as well on how to do the binding. I don't go over binding too much in the pattern or in the video because we could take a whole video on doing binding. So I didn't do too much. I didn't talk about binding too much in the video because there's just lots of different ways that you can do it. Personally, I use gross grain ribbon, and then you can also use, all kinds of stuff. But the idea is that you want whatever binding material you're going to use, you want to use thin material. That way you don't have bulky seams after you turn it right side out. You don't have to use two zippers in the top. I choose to use two zippers because it makes it easy for opening and closing, but you don't have to. You can definitely use just one. If you want to add a zipper pocket to the inside of the bag, you could do that. If you wanted to omit this outside slip pocket, you could do that, or even the overlay in the back. You could absolutely omit those parts as well. So if you have a nice big panel that you're wanting to use, you could just not use that and just use 4 of the connectors rather than the zipper overlay. She does have instructions for adding purse feet to it, so if you wanted to do that, you could do that as well. But she came out adorable. I really do love this pattern. Like I said, it comes together really quick, really easy, and she is fantastic. So, with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so we should have everything stabilized and interfaced. If you're going to use any stabilizer on your vinyl pieces, you'll want to go ahead and do that. Of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm using none. I chose not to use any because the bag is binded. It's already going to have the structure that it needs with that binding. So the first thing we want to do is pull out piece A3 and A4 and go ahead and set your other pieces off to the side. And you're only going to need one piece of A4. And then, as I mentioned really quick, I did go ahead and sew up my crossbody strap, so I won't be doing that during the video, so that is already complete. So pull out one piece A4 and your A3 piece, which is your pocket welt. You should already have your centers marked. So I have my center mark there. and I have my center marked here. I did go ahead and give this a crease where it's going to be folded down the center, just so it's already creased and ready to go. You do want to attach your A3 welt piece to your A4 piece, bottom to bottom. So if you kind of look at this piece here, you'll see that your top piece is larger than your bottom piece. So make sure that your top piece is rotated to the top, and then we're going to be, oops, let me rotate that back. Your top piece is rotated to the top, and then we're going to add the bottom of A3 to A4. You're going to clip this in place. And then sew across this at 3/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, so you should have that sewn at 3/8 inch seam allowance here at the top. So we want to, and she's very specific about this, we're going to fold this over to where our seam allowance is faced down. We're going to give that a good crease, and then we're going to top stitch this. Okay, so once you have that top stitched, you then want to pull out piece A2, which is your pocket exterior piece. And if you have directional fabric like I do, you'll just want to make sure to maybe put a little T here at the top so that you know which is the top and which is the bottom. But essentially what we're going to be working with, or what this is going to look like when we get this done, is like kind of like this. So that's going to be the inside, and this is going to be the outside. So it's going to feel a little funny, but you're going to put the top of piece A2 to the top of piece A3. So again, I'm just making sure that my direction is facing the right way. We're going to clip this in place, and then we're going to sew this at a 3/8 seam allowance. Okay, so now we should have that sewn at 3/8 inch seam allowance. I know that yellow is kind of hard to see on the white. And this time we're going to fold it to where the seam allowance is going up towards the welt. Again, she's very specific about that. So we want to make sure that we're folding the welt back and facing the seam allowance up. Okay, so now from here you're going to top stitch this, and then you're going to turn it over, and you're going to install your magnetic snap on the bottom part of the welt. So this part here, you're going to measure up based off of the pattern and install your magnetic snap. And then we're going to fold at that fold line and top stitch the welt closed. Okay, so now the front part of my front slip pocket is complete. I did go ahead and add my label here to the front. She does give you measurements of how far up and center to put this, but really it's up to you. It's wherever you want to put it. I do like it centered and on the front like this, so I just kept it that way. I did go ahead and install my female side of my magnetic snap and top stitched my welt close. For the moment, you can go ahead and set this piece off to the side. Next, we'll want to pull out the remaining A4 piece and your A1 front top piece. Again, you should already have your centers marked, but we're going to take A1 to the top of A4, pin those in place, and then we are going to sew this at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then after we stitch it at 3/8 inch, we'll fold it up, have our seam allowance facing down, and top stitch. Okay, so now I have A1 attached to A4, and I have that top stitched. So now you'll want to measure down, install the other part of your magnetic snap, and then set that out of the way. You'll want to pull out your handle connector And there are two different ones in there that you can choose from. One that's very sharp edged and one that's a curved edge. Either one will be fine. We're going to sew them the exact same way. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you should already have a piece of stabilizer to the back of this. You're going to take your handle connectors and fold them in, matching up. Hang on, I'll kind of show you this here in a minute. So you can kind of see here, you should have a nice right angle by the time you get done folding it over. So you'll do this to both pieces, and I just take my seam roller and roll it out. So same thing with the other side. And then before you sew this, you can take your square ring and make sure that it is going to fit, and you can see mine fits on there quite nice. So you're going to do that to your other connector, and you're going to sew down the sides at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then we'll connect these to our A1 pattern piece. Okay, so now your connectors should look something like this. You'll need to measure up from the bottom of the connector up based off of the pattern, how far up you'll need to measure. You'll have to check the pattern for that. From there, you're going to add your D-ring right to that line and then fold your connector down, making sure, or not D-ring, your square ring down and making sure that it's staying in place. So I like to add a little piece of double-sided sticky tape here to make sure that it's going to stay right where I want it and making sure that everything is staying nice and lined up. So you'll do that to your other connector as well. And then go ahead and attach your connectors to A1, which is this panel here. And then if you haven't installed your male portion of your magnetic snap, you'll want to do that as well. So you'll have your two connectors here like that. After you add your connectors, we're then going to take our completed front panel, line up our magnetic snap. So I just like to snap those together. Line up your inside pockets, and then if you kind of look at it this way, because if you look at it from the back, one pocket is longer than the other, but they're both a little bit shorter than the main part. So what I like to do is I like to follow the curve of that welt with my main. Clip that in place just to kind of hold it there, and then turn this over, find my centers and make sure that my centers are lined up. Go ahead and clip just the lining portion. Leave your exterior undone. And so now what you're going to do, and of course again this is after you've added your connectors, you're going to move your exterior out of the way, and you're going to sew your pocket starting about 1/4 of an inch and then increasing to about 3/8 of an inch and then 1/4 of an inch across the bottom, and then same thing, 3/8 decreasing into 1/4 of an inch here on the side. Okay, so we should now have the front part of our bag complete. As you can see, I've got my magnetic snap installed with my connectors added to A1. And then I have my zipper pocket here on the back sewn, and then I went ahead and used some pinking shears to trim it down. Now if you just wanted to keep your pocket in line with the rest of the bag, you could do that, especially if you're using a thinner material, and then you would have that extra space in there. But doing it this way really does not take that much space away from the pocket itself. So go ahead and set this piece off to the side. Now we'll want to pull out our zipper connector, handle connector zipper overlay. And in the same manner that we did our connectors on our other panel, we're going to do the same thing here. So I've already got my double-sided sticky tape added to the outside of my zipper overlay, but I'm going to just pull my edges in on either side, and then we're going to sew those edges down. Add our square ring to our connectors and fold our connectors in. and you'll place your square ring so far down based off of the pattern piece. So again, I like to just put a little mark there so I know where that needs to lay, and then we'll fold our connector down and over into the zipper overlay. Once you've done that and you've got your connectors added, you'll want to pull out exterior piece B or back, and just the exterior piece for now. And then we'll add our zipper overlay to exterior piece so far down according to the pattern and centered, and then we'll sew the outside area of the zipper overlay. Don't sew the inside, you just want to sew the outside of it. Okay, so we should now have a back part that looks like this. So you can see it sewn there on the back. I did go back and add rivets to my connectors. Not 100% necessary, but I thought it looked a little bland without some rivets there, so I went back and I added those. So now what you're going to want to do is cut out this box, and you're going to cut to where it's underneath here from the back side. Just make sure that you don't cut your overlay here. You just want to cut that box out, and it doesn't have to be real pretty on the back side, just so long as you cannot see this main print from the box itself. So I always try and cut as close to my stitch line as possible. So now you're going to want to pull out your short zipper, and you should already have your center marks, your zipper pull, and your zipper pocket lining. Now the pattern calls for 2 lining pieces. I like to do my zipper pockets with just one piece, one solid piece, instead of 2 pieces, so that I don't end up with that short bit here at the bottom. Later on, I'm just going to have one piece. Plus, this bag isn't being birthed, so we don't need to worry about having a hole in our zipper pocket. So I do just one whole piece rather than 2 pieces. So we're going to attach our zipper to our zipper pocket piece, centered. And I like to use double-sided sticky tape here, but you can pin or clip if you would like. I don't recommend pinning because then it will cause ripples in your zipper tape later on, but you can definitely use clips to add this. The reason why I like to use tape, and I am using tape that's going to be out of my seam allowance, is because I can attach both of these pieces, both edges, at the same time before I sew it. And then I can just sew both of them at the same time rather than having to stop and clip the other side. Just makes it a little bit quicker, a little bit easier to do it that way. So now we're going to sew both sides. Make sure that when you sew your zipper that this is nice and flat up here. You don't want it bunched up like this to where you're going to end up catching your zipper. So you're going to sew your zipper tape to your zipper pocket, and then you're going to add your zipper pull, and then maybe add another line of double-sided sticky tape, and then we're going to attach it to our back panel B. We've done these in lots of other videos, but it's really pretty simple, and then I'll walk you through how we're going to stitch this into the back panel B. Okay, so we should now have our box cut out and our zipper pocket attached to piece B, but we still need to sew around this inner box. So if you're going to do the pattern the way that the pattern says to do it, that's fine, you can do it that way. I choose to do just one panel rather than 2 when it comes to the zipper pocket. So the way that I'm going to do mine is I'm going to pull up my zipper pocket to where everything is pulled up to the top and nothing is going to be in the way. I'm going to start down here at the bottom about 1/8 of an inch over from the side here, 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to sew all the way across the bottom and then stop at 1/8 of an inch on the other side. Okay, so once you have it sewn, again, I apologize, the yellow on yellow, but you're going to have some long threads. Go ahead and pull those long threads to the back. And then we're going to tie these off with a triple single knot. So a triple knot, we're going to loop once, loop twice, loop a third time, pull tight, loop once, pull tight, and that will give you a very strong knot that's not going to come undone. And then go ahead and trim your threads. You can melt these down if you would like. Because I'm using Olifun for my zipper pocket, I will not be taking fire to this at all. I learned that the hard way. So now go ahead and flip your pocket down. Make sure it's all down nice and straight and even. And now we're going to start in the hole where we stopped. We're going to sew up across the top and then back down, stopping in the hole where we started. Okay, and same as before, we're going to do that triple single knot. So now you should have something that looks just like this. So now what we need to do is we need to close up this zipper pocket. So we're going to pull our panel B away from the zipper pocket. And what I like to do is I like to make a nice straight line with it. That way that gives my foot something to follow. So then I'll just sew straight down. And because this is closed here, you can just straight down, and then same thing on the other side, and trim it up, and then your pocket will be closed. Okay, so we should now have the outside back part of our purse finished, and I went ahead and stitched my bottom closed here and trimmed off that little bit of zipper pocket that I had, but that should be complete. So hold on to this. You'll need to pull out your piece C as in cat, which is your base. And right now we need just the exterior piece. I went ahead and installed my purse feet to this, and then I always add a little bit of duct tape to the bottoms of those so that the metal doesn't wear through the fabric. And as you can see, I'm not using any Decoville Heavy on this because, again, the bag is going to be structured enough with it being binded. So I think this will be fine. So go ahead and find the centers of your base, which I apologize, I should have done this already. So find the centers long ways, and then you'll also want to find the centers short ways. She doesn't say to right now, but later on in the pattern, you will need the center of the short. And I just clip a little notch in them. It doesn't have to be a super big notch, definitely nothing inside of your seam allowance, just a small little notch. So now you're going to take your base and you're going to attach it to the bottom of your back piece, centered. And then we're going to sew this on at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. After you sew it on, you are then going to open it up and top stitch it. So you'll open it up this way to where your seam allowance is facing towards the base and top stitch it across. And then you'll grab your front piece and do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so the exterior part of your bag is halfway done, so you should have something that looks kind of similar to this here. So you have your front and your back connected to the base, and you should have that top stitched along there. After you top stitch, you'll want to trim off here on the corners on all 4 sides. Go ahead and set this piece off to the side for now. Next, you'll want to pull out piece E, and for the moment we're just going to work with one exterior and one interior piece. You can set the other 2 off to the side for now. You'll also need your long zip and your 2 zipper pulls. You don't have to have 2 zipper pulls. You can absolutely do this with just 1 zipper pull. So if you're using some type of specialty zipper pulls and you only have one will be just fine. Aesthetically, it does look better with 2, but you don't absolutely have to have 2. But your zipper pulls. So first we're going to pull out our lining piece. Now I've already added my double-sided sticky tape to this, but if you haven't, then you would want to either use some double-sided sticky tape or some clips to be able to hold this in place. So with your lining right side up and your zipper wrong side down, we're going to add the zipper center to piece E on the straight edge. So if you look at piece E, you have one side that's a little curved and one side that is a straight edge. You want to add your zipper to that straight edge, and you may even need to mark your pattern piece so that you know exactly which one is the straight edge and which is the curved. Okay, so like that. And then we're going to take our exterior piece, remove your tape, and we're going to do right side of exterior piece E to right side of zipper. And I like to do this just all at the same time. You can baste your zipper onto the lining if you would like. Okay, so just like this. So now you're going to want to sew this zipper on at, you're going to sew this on at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. After messing up all of those seam allowances in the earlier part of the video, I wanted to make sure. So you're going to sew this on at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're going to turn your 2 pieces wrong sides together. So wrong sides together, and top stitch. And then you'll want to top stitch the entire, all 3 sides of the zipper panel. Okay, so you should now have your top zipper gusset complete with your lining, and you should have it top stitched as well as top stitched around all edges. Okay, so now we want to pull out, whether you're doing the D-ring tabs or you're doing the grab tabs, you'll want to pull one of those out. So I'm choosing to do the D-ring so that I can have a crossbody strap with my purse. So you'll want to use some double-sided sticky tape right down the center, and this is going to stay out of the seam allowance, so you don't need to worry about it. But we're going to add that down right in the center on both sides. And then I like to take my seam roller and give that a good roll. Same thing on the other side, matching those centers up so we have a nice seamless look underneath. So now you're going to top stitch this at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so now our D-rings should be complete, so go ahead and grab your D-rings and place those on here. Now, I did not have 3/4 inch D-rings. I thought I did when I started this, and apparently I did not. So I had to switch over to 1 inch D-rings and change the size of my D-ring holder, and you may find that you need to do that depending on what you're sewing. So the next thing that I like to do, now she tells you to just sew across the bottom, but what I don't like when that happens is that makes this D-ring movable and it can move around too much. So I like to do a line of stitching as close as I can to the D-ring instead. Okay, now that that's complete and we've got our D-rings connected to our D-ring tabs, we're going to take our D-rings and connect them to the end of our zipper gusset. Now you can trim your zipper down even if you would like, but I'm actually going to use that as a reference for how far down to place my D-ring connectors. So if you look here, so I'm going to use that as a reference because I want some of this to hang over. If you don't, over time, especially if people put a lot of stuff in their purses, these will start to rip. So I like to hang them over, you know, just enough. So I'm going to use that zipper to kind of give me a guide and then make sure that it is lined up even. Right in the center. Okay, so just like this. So you'll repeat that for the other side. But before you do that, let's move on to piece D, which is the gusset. This will be the bottom of the bag that's going to connect to piece C. And for the moment, just pull out an exterior and an interior. And you're going to place your interior, the part that doesn't have the cutout, so these little cutouts here, you want to place that on top of your gusset, zipper gusset panel. And then you can either baste this exterior piece in place, or you can do like I'm going to do and just add your lining to the back, just like this. And then we're going to sew this in place at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So go ahead and connect your lining to it and then sew across here at 3/8 inch. I'm also going to do an additional line of sewing, again, because I want to make sure that this tab stays nice and secure, as well as my zipper. I'm going to do an 1/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to go back and do a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, so we should now have our zipper gusset complete with piece D. You can see I only top stitched across the top. We do not want to top stitch, or we don't want to base stitch any of this in place. We want to leave that open on both sides. If you were doing the grab holders, which I believe is piece H, before you top stitch this, you would want to fold those down, but be warned, it is very thick through here, so you may not even want to do that either. So now we need to grab our exterior piece here. And we're going to attach, sorry, I was making sure of something. We're going to attach our exterior piece, piece D, to piece C, which is the base piece here. Okay, and just like this. And then we're going to sew across here at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. You want to start right at the corner of this little piece here, right in that corner, and then stop right in the corner on the other side as well. And then you're going to do that to both sides. So same thing on this other side. Make sure that you're keeping your lining out of the way, and go ahead and stitch both of those in place. And then you'll set this piece to the side. You'll want to pull out your lining pieces for piece B. And if you're going to add slip pockets or zipper pockets, anything like that, you'll want to go ahead and do that before this next step. So for example, I'm going to do a slip pocket in mine. So I'm going to put a slip pocket in here before I attach this to the base. But the same way that we attach the base to the exterior, we're going to do the same thing to this. So we're going to line our bottom of piece B with piece C and sew across here at 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then you'll do the same thing to this piece here, attach it together, 3/8 inch seam allowance, and then you'll want to top stitch to where your seam allowance is pointed in on the base. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's create our lining, inside lining pieces, and then attach our piece D to piece C on the exterior. And then you're also going to attach your lining piece C to the lining piece of piece D. And so when we get back, I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so we should now have piece D, which is the gusset, attached to piece C, which is our base. And we've got something that looks, well, a little funny right now. So you've got your lining here that's attached, and then you have your exterior that's connected there, and you can see those gussets here are connected to the base. One thing that you'll want to go ahead and do now is right here where these little notches are, you'll want to go ahead and clip into piece C. So you can kind of see here how I've clipped that out of the way there. That way when we go to put this together, it'll fold up nice and even and around. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to turn this bag to where our lining, wrong side of our lining, is to the wrong side of our exterior. So we're just going to pull one piece through, one piece the other way, and so now we should have it all turned and flat to where you now have your lining wrong side together with the wrong side of your exterior, and same thing on the other side, as well as your gussets. She does not tell you to do this in the pattern, but after making the first one, I realized that if I did this, it just made things so much easier. So what I recommend doing is now, because this is a binded bag, I recommend clipping your loose pieces together. So I start at the center, clip at the center, and then I'm just going to clip all the way around, making sure that everything is nice and even, and I'm going to baste my exterior and my lining together before we move on to the next spot. Again, this is not in the pattern. You don't have to do this. I just found it to be much easier if the exterior is basted with the interior. It just makes it easier to then put the sides together and be able to sew it and bind it without it moving all over the place. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to baste all of this in place. You're welcome to do that as well. So I'm going to baste all around my outside, and then I'm going to come in here and also baste, if I can get this to move on me. Sorry, I'm going to baste in here my piece D pieces together, because remember we didn't sew those together, so I'm going to baste those in place now as well. Okay, so we should now have something that looks like this. So if you basted like I did, you should have all of your pieces attached to one another. We'll want to go ahead and turn this wrong side out, so where your inside is facing you. So just like this. And then you'll want to take one side, go ahead and open your zipper up here. Take one side and attach it to the other side. And you can clip all this in place. So I'm going to get a couple clips here and then show you down at the bottom what you'll need to do. So down here at the bottom, where you've got two different pieces here, so you have your front piece here, and then you have your side piece here. You'll want to take and attach those to where the raw edges are going to meet. Now this can be a little difficult, little fiddly. She wants to kind of get in the way a little bit, so just work it as best as you can. So just like this. Okay, and then after you clip everything in place on both sides, you're going to sew around this at 1/8 of an inch, and then we're going to add our binding to it. Now you can bind lots of different ways. I'm not going to go over binding on this video, but you can use gross grain ribbon, you can use bias binding, you can use where people use fold over elastic. There's lots of different things that you can use to bind. I also like to use Ollie-Fun and cut my strips for the Ollie-Fun, because Ollie-Fun has a little bit of a stretch to it, so going around curves makes it look really nice. Gross grain ribbon is really good too. You can use that. Primarily you want to stick with the thinner types of material, because the thinner the material for your binding, the nicer it's going to look when you turn this right side out. You're going to have nice crisp edges rather than bulky edges, and we don't want bulky edges. So we're going to do that. So we're going to sew this first at 1/8 of an inch, and then we're going to install our our binding at 1/4 of an inch, and then our bag will be almost complete, and the only thing that we'll have left to do is the handles, and we'll do that when we come back. Okay, so now that you have your bag finished, we need to go ahead and finish it up by doing our handles. So you want to pull out piece J. Now you can follow the pattern size with piece J and use that for your handle size. You can do rolled handles, you can do regular, square handles, you can do long handles, short handles. I mean, really, it's whatever you want to do. Well, I will say this though. Because this is such a petite bag, you want to keep the handles more on the petite side. So I'm going to do the rolled handle, and I'm going to show you how to do the rolled handle. So you'll want to mark the center of your strap, add some double-sided sticky tape. Now it is very important to use either double-sided sticky tape, very strong double-sided sticky tape, very strong glue that will dry fast, because we're going to use tubing on the inside of this, and it needs to be able to hold that tubing in place so that we can then sew it. So after you get your straps marked, double-sided sticky tape, you then want to mark up on the strap based off of the pattern, and that marking is so that we can fold this over, and then we're going to sew up to that mark. So the mark in the pattern is her size. You can use that size. I think that it's a perfectly fine amount to sew up, because then that gives you enough room to be able to fold it over later on. So let's do that first. So I've marked my handle, and I'm just going to take my tape off to my mark. I'm not going to go any further than that. And you'll end up doing this to both handles, both sides of the handle. So we first want to fold the strap in, the handle in, to that mark based off of the pattern. Give it a good roll, and then fold in the other side. And you really want to get both sides nice and butted up to each other. That's just going to look so much better for your end result. And then I'm just going to take a couple of clips and hold the rest in place with clips until I get it sewn all the way. So then I'm going to start from my mark down, across, and back up. So now you should have something that looks like this, but your middle is open. So you'll want to go ahead and do that on all 4 pieces. Okay, so now we have both sides of our handle sewn together. So now you want to grab your piping. Now you may choose to do longer handles for this bag. So a general rule of thumb is that you just want to make sure that your piping, your piping is, or your tubing if you want to call it that, is 4 inches shorter than your handle. So if your handle is, for example, 14 inches, then you would want your tube to be 10 inches, right? Because we're taking 4 inches here off. So essentially what I'm going to do now is, even though I've cut my tubing, I want to make sure, and I'm actually a little long, so I want to take and cut some of this off. Oh yeah, that is much better. Okay, so let me show you the tubing that I'm using. So this is the tubing that I'm using. It's just clear vinyl tubing, like water for like plumbing, but what you want to pay attention to is this outside diameter. You want at least 3/8 inch diameter for the outside part of the tubing. Inside diameter it can be 1/4 inch, that's fine, it doesn't really matter, but the 3/8 inch is important here. So we're going to, before we remove our inside tape here, actually, I'm not going to do that. Go ahead and just remove your inside tape. I was going to add a little bit more double-sided sticky tape, but I think it'll be fine. And then we're going to take our tubing, And where you made that mark here, so if you can kind of see on the inside where I made that mark, that's where I'm going to start my tubing. So I'm going to lay it down, and as I'm laying it down, I'm going to start to pull up my strap or my handle so that my tape will stick to the tubing. And so it'll hold it in place where I need it to be. And I still got a little long on it, so hang on, guys. Let me cut just a little bit more off. Sometimes we just have to make adjustments along the way. There we go, that looks better. Then you can see it wants to curve on me, and that's fine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take and pull up real tight on our handle and get our straight edges together. Okay, real tight. The tighter the better, because then you don't have to worry about curves and waves when we go to sew this in place. It's just going to sit real nice for us. Okay, so just like this. And you can see, like I said, it still wants to curve up on me, but that's fine, right? Because it's a handle, we want it to curve anyways. So when we go to sew this, we are going to use our zipper foot, and you want a left zipper foot. So well, I will find it here in a minute. But basically, if you look at your zipper foot, there's a hole to the left of the zipper foot itself. So you'll have a hole there. So you'll want to, that's the type of zipper foot that you want, is one that's got a hole to the left. And when you start to sew this, you're going to put it to where that needle is going, I mean, right directly, really close to this tubing. If you're using strong needles and you hit the tubing a little bit, because it's hollow, it's going to be fine. So you're going to put that needle down right close to the tubing, and you're just going to sew all the way to the end. Once you get to the end and you're done, pull long threads, and we're going to end up looping around our thread to either side after we cut all of this down and trim it down. So back to take and sew your handle real close to that tubing, and then we'll come back and do the rest. Wow, she came out so good. I am so in love with this one. So happy with the way that it turned out. I went to go do the rolled handles, but for the life of me, I just could not get my zipper foot to work with my rolled handles. So I ended up doing faux rolled handles instead. You know, sometimes that happens. So we just have to kind of work with it the way that it goes. But she came out so cute. And you can see, even though I did not use any stabilizer in the bottom, because of the way that it's structured, it still gives it stability in the bottom. But I think next time I definitely will, because it is a little soft down here. So I think next time I'll definitely add some stabilizer into the bottom of this. But I absolutely love her. One mistake that I did make when I was sewing the inside of the bag, I was not being mindful of my seam allowance. Definitely make sure that you're taking, you know, somewhere between that 1/4 to 3 inch, 3/8 inch seam allowance when you're sewing around this, because I actually ended up with some small holes here in my corners that I had to go back in and fix. So definitely be mindful of your seam allowance when you're sewing the bag closed before you do the binding. But I'm so happy with her. I'm so happy with the way she came out. And for those who may be offended, I am very sorry for the wording, but we here on this channel do not get offended easily. So super cute. I do love it. And of course, you have that option to either do the crossbody strap or do those I think she calls them pull tabs or hold tabs here instead, if you didn't want to have the crossbody. Most of my customers like to have the crossbody, so I added that instead. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to give it a big old thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and ring that bell. Thank you so much, and as always, live a paradise life. Bye!